Okay, sir.
Now I invite Adam and sir. Please stay here.
Madam. Okay. Sir, मेरे current sir.
Sir, correct. Right.
3. Ajay.
Good landing.
Madam, stand please.
Your name, sir?
Sector of farmers. And Phule, also known as Jyotiba Phule, was a social reformer, writer, and thinker from Maharashtra, India. He played a pivotal role in advocating for the rights of the lower caste and persons, and his contributions to India's agrarian sector are significant. And about early life and education, he was lived during the time when the agrarian sector in India was dominated by feudal systems and exploitation. He gained an understanding of the agrarian sector through direct experience and observation during his youth, because he belonged to a Mali family who are engaged in farming. So he has real-time experience, so he could understand the problems and difficulties of the farmers and the problems of the agrarian sector. And he established Satyashodak Samaj. It turned as a platform for the oppressed to come together and fight for equality. Phule's works has left a lasting impact on promoting social upliftment and advocating for economic parity within agrarian societies. And his efforts laid the foundation for empowering rural communities and challenging the entrenched norms of socio-economic discrimination. And legacy of Phule in modern India, we can see that empowerment of marginalized communities, social reform and equality, and inspiration for social justice movements. And specifically looking into the agrarian sector, as I mentioned, Phule lived during a time when the agrarian sector in India was dominated by feudal systems and exploitation. The rural population, primarily farmers and agricultural workers, faced severe oppression and were trapped in cycles of poverty and debt bondage. Fuller's and his observations on the grievances faced by farmers, he observed that unequal access to land and resources, leading to economic disparities among farmers, and he highlighted the issue of farmers being trapped in debt bondage due to unfair lending practices. And Phule noted the absence of farmer representation in policy making and governance structures. And his efforts for the upliftment of farmers and agricultural workers, he advocated for the education and empowerment of farmers to improve their knowledge and socio-economic standing. He worked towards setting up agricultural cooperatives to help farmers gain access to resources and fair markets. He actively campaigned for fair wages and better working conditions for agricultural laborers. And regarding land reforms and farmers' rights, He was a vocal advocate of land reforms and the rights of farmers in India. He recognized the oppressive feudal system and exploited farmers and tirelessly worked towards securing land rights and fair treatment of them. And he established free schools in rural areas to educate farmers and their families, initiated programs for farmers to share knowledge about modern agricultural practices, advocated for farmer rights and empowered them to demand their fair treatment. And his agrarian reform movement, he contributed to the agrarian reform movement includes his pioneering efforts to advocate for universal education and empowerment among marginalized and aging communities. And his work focused on challenging caste-based discrimination and striving for social equality aiming to uplift the oppressed agricultural laborers and peasants. And he encouraged for collective action and solidarity among the agricultural populace. And he had proposed various solutions to address the farmers' grievances such as land reforms, debt relief measures, rural governance, etc. When we look into contemporary agrarian scenario, the contemporary agrarian scenario is shaped by a complex interplay of factors such as technological advancements, global market dynamics, and sustainability development. These are changing into challenges also. Integration of modern farming technologies and practices poses challenges for the traditional agrarian communities. Global market fluctuations impact the livelihoods of small-scale agricultural producers, creating economic uncertainties and environmental sustainability issues such as water scarcity, soil degradation pose significant challenges to agrarian productivity. And there are strategies to address these issues. And when you look into the contributions of Phule, we can see that technology integration. At that time, Phule suggested for agro-industrial development that has been there in the developed countries, so it should be implemented in India also. And he argued for entrepreneurship programs. We can see that Phule advocated for education for the agri farmers that only will help them to improve their agricultural products, etc. And he also talked about environment conservation and land fertility is important for agricultural output, increase in the output. So these strategies also, the challenges are same, but according to the time there are some changes occurred, but the underlying factors are the same. And here I specifically, Phule has addressed various issues regarding the agricultural problems and farmers' issues. For the comparison of Phule's time and today's Indian scenario, I took one of the issue, that is the issue related to forest department and agricultural sector and farmers, to come for the better comparison of both times and to recognize the contributions of Phule. And the forest department's policies were primarily focused on revenue generation and resource extraction at that time. Phule observed exploitative practices that affected the livelihoods of the local communities. The forest department's activities had a direct impact on the agricultural practices and land rights of the farmers. And he criticized the forest department's unchecked exploitation of natural resources. He highlighted the social and economic injustices as perpetrated by the forest department's policies. He emphasized that forest policies disrupted traditional livelihoods and agrarian systems. And when the cultivator's report, the book written by Phule, says that poor and handicapped farmers' sheep and goats have no place to feed even on air in the forest. He said that there were pastoral lands, but the forest department acquired these lands and made it part of the forest land. And they didn't allow these farmers to pasture their sheep and cattle in those areas. It was theirs one time, but it became part of the forest. And they are not allowing the poor farmers to depend on forest resources. And they are not even though they are not harming the forest. And when we look into the other thing, the government, he says, talking about the human wildlife conflict, the government does not have the courage to allow the farmers to possess old guns in order to protect these farms from the wild beasts. At that time also there were human wildlife, also wild beasts were entering into the farmlands and making destructions, and it adversely affects the agricultural crops. So he has addressed this issue at that time also, and he said that the farmers should be equipped themselves to address the issues themselves. And he also suggests that if the forest department fails to keep the wild beasts inside the forest, they should be punished and compensation should be taken from their salaries. Such suggestions also came from his side to address these issues. And when we look into today's scenario, we can see that there, like that, at that time there were various forest laws like that. Today, after the 1970s, Indian government has introduced various laws for the protection of forests or the environment, and the intention of the forest conservation is different when we compare to the Bull's time and today. At that time, it was forests are intended for resource extraction. Today, it is for conserving our environment, and there are laws such as wild. But another thing is that those laws of this time and that time is taken care by the forest department. They are using brutal policies for implementing these laws, and there are that those laws are adversely affect the agrarian sector and also the farmers. For example, the Wildlife Protection Act, Forest Conservation Act, Environment Protection Act, etc. And when the people are restrained from entering into the forest or the keeping away people from the forest, means they are arguing for forest conservation. No human intervened areas. They are keeping forests as non-human intervened areas. Such exclusionary policies will lead to forest conservation, and it will displaces indigenous communities and also new places to add new areas, because they cannot no more depend on forest, their land. Even though those lands were theirs, they cannot no more depend on their land for their livelihood. Another problem is human wildlife conflict, and protected areas resulted in more human wildlife conflict due to strict boundaries, because these laws protecting mainly protecting the animals or wildlife, but the people are not protected from the when we look into the from the perspective of these laws solely for the protection of wildlife. The common people or the people who are living inside and the around the forest areas are not taken consideration, and biodiversity but also is there. And these are the issues what is happening in India around our forests, regarding the forest conservation and displacement of the people. It is an first photo shows the Meghalaya Reserve Forest, the families who are expelled from their homeland, and second one is the Kani settlement who are facing eviction from their homeland, and this is Baigas who have expelled from Kanha Tiger Reserve. They are outside the forest. This is the regarding Van Gujas in Jim Corbett National Park. They are displaced with a court order, and this shows that this is a newspaper cutting, and this says that almost 40,000 people were evicted in the name of conservation in 2017 itself. And when we look into the photograph, we can see that they are using elephants to displace these people. That means modern transportation facilities are not reached there. Such a remote area, and the forest officials using the brutal agencies to displace them, and again they are marginalized and they become refugees. And this is Similipal Tiger Reserve. They are displaced from their homeland. They are living in refugee camps. And this is a refugee government. This is another example. Achanmukar Tiger Reserve in Chhattisgarh, and they are resettled in here, but they are not using these settlements because they don't have livelihood from these places. So they gone back or they settled in other places, and they are not in a position to live in the places, resettlement areas. And this is another area, another incident, and this is Periyar Tiger Reserve. And I have listed out various displacements of various forests in India. And this is regarding the human, another issue, human wildlife conflict. This is an agricultural land. I have visited this place, and an elephant is plucking jackfruit. And this is an incident of Kerala. And for the Keralites, common village people or agricultural farmers who are depending on jackfruits for almost 6 months as a meal or breakfast or the whole day meal, and they are not in a position to have their meal because of the wildlife attacks or the intervention or the raiding of these animals in their agricultural lands. Not only they are plucking these fruits, but they are destructing the agricultural products or the fields. And this is a family who are living on the top of their own home because of the frequent animal attacks. This is a leopard attack on human being. This is an attack by the elephant on human beings. And we can see that these issues and the policies of the forest department, that are harming the agrarian sector and farmers. A lot of destruction, agricultural destructions are going on today in and around, especially around the forest-rich villages. And more than 1 lakh of villagers are living around the forests of India. So the problem is still continuing, as mentioned by Jyotiba Phule. And he said that the upper class people are forming policies for these persons, and they are intended to protecting them. And this is a classification made by the Madhav Gadgil and Ramchandra Guha in 1995 regarding the society of India. They classified listed out 3 prominent groups. First one is omnivores. They are the beneficiaries of modern development. They have the capacity to have all the facilities, amenities of the modern age. They form 1/6 of India's population. They enjoy the produce of the entire biosphere. And other 2 categories, the second one is ecosystem people. The bulk of the poor who cannot obtain new goods on the market. Over half of the population belong to this group. They are solely depending on natural resources of the land for their livelihood. Then next category is the ecological refugees. They are the millions of persons and tribal peoples who have been displaced to make way for projects like dams, mines, and conservation initiatives. They are also not in a position to have any of these amenities of the today's modern age. And when we compare it to Fuller's time and today, at that time upper class private policies, upper class exploited other classes, and today these omnivores are framing policies and laws for the other 2 categories of people who are totally farmers, who are totally depending on natural resources. And in the name of protecting these people, they are forming policies. The underlying fact is those who are exploited and exploited are the same, and those who are oppressors, those who are oppressed are the same. There is no change in the oppression or oppressor and oppressive and exploiter and exploited. This is continuing when we look into the in-depth of the reasons for the repressive condition of these farmers of today and that age. And another, this is the words of our ex-Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. She delivered at the Stockholm Conference of 1972 in the first Earth Summit. She recognized that we cannot for a moment forget the grim poverty of large numbers of people. For instance, unless we are in a position to provide employment and purchasing power for the daily necessities of the tribal people and those who live in and around our jungles, we cannot prevent them from combing the forest for food and livelihood. The persons who are who doesn't have food and livelihood, they are depending on natural resources, whether it is their own land or the forest. And the forest is mainly possessed by the government for the welfare of the people. And restricting them from the forest means they are restricting the rights or taking away the rights of the common people or persons and indigenous communities. I just want to say that the relevance of Paul's ideas are still continuing and his contributions, his efforts for the welfare of the agrarian community is still relevant. And I just remember one of the incident lately I had come across. Once I asked recently I asked my students who gives us food. They without any hesitation they told me it is the industrial sector because they are having biscuits and noodles from the industrial sector. Next generation will say that they are getting food from the service sector because they touch on the screen, they will get food from their food on their doorsteps. And we know that technology has developed, but it is not developed up to the stage that providing food from the machines to satisfy the needs of the world population. And we are still depending on agrarian sector and we are depending on farmers for our food. And it is our duty to respect the farmers and protect the agrarian sector not only because we have food from them but also they are contributing to the economy. So we people should take the teachings and perspectives of Pune to our heart. We should continue our efforts, his efforts for the community and the upliftment of farmers. Thank you.
Any questions and clarifications and suggestions? Oh. Beautiful friends. Dr. Indira, introduce yourself.
I'm Professor Indira from Department of Missions University. I have few observations, ma'am. You have presented very well. But I would like to know, what are the references you have made to understand the Jyotiba Phule's historical perspective? What are the references you have read? Go to your literature study, review of literature, and what are his writings, main writings on the farmers' issues, and what kind of policies or demands or requests he made to the Darden government. And now you have said the technology, okay? Now AI has come. So how do we see AI's help to the farmers? So the present and this, and what are the small measures Jyotiba Phule gave for the farmers to solve their issues, to the petitions to the government? So these are my questions. You have shown mostly about the forest, okay? Forest is, we have to preserve the forest right now because of the present conditions. We have to protect the forest. Otherwise, forest no more means already we have lost much of the forest. So we have to regain the forest. In that connection, we have to see even because of the increasing population and everything, agriculture is need of the hour. Both the things we have to see. Now, how do you balance these things? So these are my few observations in your presentation.
Madam, your presentation is around the human settlements around the forest and what's the problems actually. And your proposal has been revisiting Jyotiba Phule's legacy and agriculture, relevance in the contemporary India. So in the sense, settlements around the forest.
No, I just one example to compare that time and present time. One example. Forest related to forest issues.
You revisited thoroughly regarding Jyotiba Phule's legacy, but link the contemporary relevance a bit with appropriate way of suggestions in sustaining the agriculture, sustaining the forest. That observation. You try to answer a little bit step there.
First, I want to appreciate, I'm Emma, Director of IFO Connect Foundation. We work for the marginalized communities on inclusion, innovation, impact work, especially on education. So I want to appreciate Anju first for the work that you've done. I have two questions. Uh, One is definitely in the contemporary times. Like, I'm just interested to know, like now farmers are fighting a minimum wage, like at least rupees 700, 200 days of guarantee. Yeah? So even now when we say that there are the bottom which rights have not been recognized, and you really brought out how Jyotirao Phule has fought for the farmers' rights. So how does it reflect in terms of assuring the guarantee of their protection of livelihood or minimum wages? Any highlights on that? The second question is, you mentioned somewhere the oppressor and oppressed are same. I just want a little more clarity on that. The third point is the displaced, the indigenous people from the forest and tribal areas. So have we traced in the contemporary situation, you have said you have compiled displacement. So in the recent period, across the states of India, what is the pattern and what are the things emerging out of that after the displacement? What are the violence has been happening and what is the response towards that? These are my three focus questions.
Do you have any questions?
One more is the act which was passed during Jyotirao Phule's agitation. The act was passed by the British government. Which is that act? So you have to go through the history, otherwise you cannot understand Jyotirao Phule and his contribution. His measures. Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. And first one is about Jyotirao Phule's works. Cultivators Report is specifically focused on the farmers and their problems and agricultural problems faced by the agrarian sector. And here I took the one issue only to compare both periods. He has concentrated on the, for example, educational backwardness of the farming community and and the industrial not introducing in this modern development in the agricultural sector and all these issues. And at that time also, I shown this forest, regarding forest alone. I am not talking about the people living inside or the taking away the forest resources. It is regarding new. When we look into the forest conservation, we can see that new areas are added to these forests as part of forest. And while taking away the land, mostly they are taking away the agricultural lands, and there are in a hugely populated country, no place is deserted, or these land resources are utilized in various ways by the people. And when we adding these lands to the forest, we can see that people living there, not considering, especially the people, farmers are there, not considering their rights, and they are providing food for the, not only they are finding food for themselves, and remaining food they are contributing to the society. And food security is one of the reasons. And the authorities are looking at the farmers as the encroachers. Actually, they are not the encroachers, and they are arguing for their rights over their own land. And when we consider the indigenous community, for a long time they are living there, and they are depending on the forest. And depriving their rights means we are doing a cultural homicide there, and cultural genocide there regarding the rights of the people. And at that time also, there are forest department did such kind of activities. They neglected the rights of the people. So today also, forest department is doing all these activities. And forest department, while they are implementing these new laws, they should take consideration of the people living there. And regarding the agricultural lands, And in Kerala, recently, within 3 months, 10 people were died due to the wildlife attack. Different wildlife like leopard, tiger, then this wild boar, and also this bear, etc. So restricting these wild animals within the forest is one of the consideration. They should be taken care of it, and we should be taken care of the lives of farmers and the agricultural lands. I have visited various places. 6 acres of land. There they are cultivating different varieties of agricultural products. Totally, these frequent wildlife attack rates, they're totally destroyed. They are taking money, loans and cultivating. How can they cultivating those lands continuously? How they can find their livelihood? How can they can send their children to the children to schools and all? And their life is also not separate. And there are, and again I am saying there are a lot of issues. I took one issue only to compare this. These problems, forest department issues, not confining to the people living there, but these wildlife attacks are coming to the major centers, cities also. They are facing the issue. And just comparing them.
Taking into consideration of all the inputs given by the scholars, and also evaluation committee also, we have sent the evaluation committee report. So according to, you should modify that, and their inputs will send you for that. Okay? So,
One more literature was brought by Jyotiba Phule on farmers. Apart from cultivation safeguard, another literature is there. Do you know what that is?
You tell me you have that.
Kisan Ka Koda.
Kisan ka Koda.
That in that he wrote about the farmers' basic issues.
Shetkar Asu.
That is there. Kisan Ka Koda. And there is a Deccan policy, Deccan Farmers Act. It was called during the British time. So all these things, if you look into that, what is the act is talking about, and in what circumstances that act was passed, when we compare to present. Now present 3 policies and all these are there. And that time the tax was free for the farmers. Okay, the tax was free. So now the tax is very much today. And GST is like, we are paying how much? Tax on tax.
You write a paper on the national newspapers.
Yeah,
you have
all
the better
this-
information, na? Why don't you write
So,
an
yeah.
article on that?
Did you go through the books like Kabir and all others in Hindi, Marathi, and Jyotiba Phule's original writing?
No, I want to see the article you should write in the national newspaper. If it is not possible, you send to me and I will be making that particular thing published in the newspaper. Because it is a needed thing.
Yeah. And technology, AI, how do you see AI today? It's in favor of farmers. In which way you will see it is helping farmers, AI? Now our is agrarian economy.
Okay.
Madam, I
Please note it, madam, and
No.
thank you so much. Now I invite Dr. Khaja Moinuddin NJ. So his presentation already is there in the screen. So please go ahead.
Good afternoon, political segments of the modern India. So in that, this title has been chosen because I need to basically I am from ideology of this thinker, the philosopher, to this social. Now the abstract of my study is the social revolution is a process of transforming the thoughts, ideas and practices and customs and long back unscientific things that clutches the human society with the discrimination, inequality and social constraints. This is called a social revolution. A spark of social change is required to transform and replace the ideologies to rebuild the society with equality, liberty, fraternity and justice, which is assured by our Constitution of India. The Phule's work have contributed to the revolutionary changes in the socio-economic and political segments of modern India. He has made remarkable contributions in the field of women empowerment, education, culture, agriculture, etc., to build a modern and inclusive India. Now, with this backdrop, my study aims to analyze the works and contributions of the Phule, to interpret the impacts of his works on building the modern India, to study the socio-economic and political implications thereafter, and to evaluate his ideological transformation in the light of social revolution. This study is pursued with available resources and information to bring the revolutionary and philosophical works of social reformer Mahatma Phule into the nutshell. The introduction is: every society has witnessed, earlier and even now also, discrimination in many forms and phases like gender discrimination, color discrimination, religious discrimination, caste discrimination, creed, and many more. So India is not restricted to these incidences. The people more have harassed in many folds and have caused revolutions to replace such constraints, to create and build a new society with equality, liberty, fraternity, and justice for the modern space. This has happened because of the revolutionary works of great personalities, thinkers, philosophers, and reformers like Mahatma Jyotiba Phule. The Phule was an incidental and ideal for the Indian social revolution to bring the social changes, to dismantle the grassrooted caste system, empower and educate the women, to strengthen the agriculture sector, to make an inclusive of the bottom level people, and to make the participatory role in the policy making of the deprived classes. His tremendous works and contributions have identical to the modern India, which the Constitution of India has documented, and also been influenced to many great eminent personalities like our Mahatma Gandhiji and Ambedkar. Surprisingly, India is fighting those issues what are the quoted by Mahatma Phule and the social evils even after we are celebrating 75th years of independence. And he fought long back, so it is around 200 years back he has fought for those issues, and till today we are going to fighting on this. So this can be recognized as the philosophical and informative thoughts and works of this Mahatma Phule. So there are many works have been conducted on the Mahatma Jyotiba Phule regarding his biography and his role and his contribution and his ideology and the empowerment taken for the women and like this. So I have also undertaken the few review of literatures concerned to my studies. Around I have reviewed 20 research articles. Based on that, I have building my the final project. I have found a few research gaps from the literature as well as my knowledge is concerned. The research gap has been found in the existence of discrimination based on gender and social class, the injustice of upper community, inequalities in the society, superstitious beliefs, and the suppression of lower community and the weaker sections of the society. In this situation, the great personality and the philosopher Mahatma Jyotiba Phule emerged as a light into the darkened life of those classes of the people. The major gap was the contemporary relevance of the Phule's ideology of social revolution towards the socio-economic and political enrichment and to pursue the present modern India. So there are many areas in which the works of Phule have been unfilled due to forgotten of his contributions in the present generation. That is revolutionary visions and his anticipated building the modern India with equality, justice and liberty and fraternity. So moreover, the giving the voice and participatory role to the socially and economically deprived class of society. With that sense, I have framed the objectives for my this short-term project report. That is to study the life biography and the role and contributions of the Mahatma Phule towards the social reforms in India, and to know the pre-existed social and economic and political evils and discriminations happening in India, to study the efforts and works and philosophies of Mahatma Phule towards building the modern India today we are discussing, and to measure the degree of impact of the reforms and revolutions of Phule taken in the contemporary India, finally to evaluate the relevance of his ideas and thoughts for the social and economic and political segments of contemporary India. So there are I have framed a research hypothesis, that is, does Mahatma Jyotiba Phule ideology of social revolution need of the hour for the modern India? Of course, we are going to prove it. And does Phule revolution ideas and thoughts nurture the socio-economic equality, justice, liberty, and fraternity in India? Does the Phule's contribution impact on the social, economic, and political segments of the contemporary India? With this, I have framed the methodology. My present study is in descriptive and explorative nature. So the data and the information has been gathered from both primary and the secondary sources. The primary sources include the survey which is collected using the question schedules for the socially and economically and politically deprived classes and weaker sections of the society, to examine the contemporary relevance of the Mahatma Phule's ideology of social revolution and for the contemporary India. Besides, the secondary data is also collected. So the research, the primary data has been collected from this. So till I am in the stage of data analysis. So, however, the data has been collected. So in Ballari district is my study. So in that I have selected, out of 5 talukas, I have selected 3 talukas. In 1 taluka I have selected 2 villages. So totally 6 villages have been covered. So the variables are Dalits. One is, so I have taken the Dalits and minorities, Devadasis, widows, and women from the backward classes, and the school children. And finally, I have taken these are the direct beneficiaries of the Mahatma Phule. And apart from that, there are 2 important the agencies are there. One is the NGOs and the political leaders. They are transforming the ideas of the Mahatma Phule into the policy making. So their role is indirectly affecting on the Mahatma Phule's work on that. Totally, I have taken the 60 the people I have interviewed. So in that, so let's have the Mahatma Jyotiba Phule's life biography, because we need to know that how his legacy is there. So Phule was born to born to Sri Govindrao and Chinnabai as a young boy on 11th April 1827 at Pune district in the Mala community. Okay. So this is called Mahatma Jyotiba Phule's vibrant role. So first, the vibrant role is being a social reformer. What are the contributions he made? So basically, he is identified in India as a social reformer. So therefore, there are the one we say that there is a one turning point in every individual life. So the same thing has happened for the Mahatma Phule's. In 1848, he attended one wedding of a Brahmin friend. So where he is participated in the marriage procession, but he was later scolded and insulted by his friend's parents for doing such thing, and because he belongs to the Shudra community and should have a sense to keep away from this kind of the ceremonies. So this incident profoundly affected on Mahatma Phule and shaped his understanding of the injustice inherent to the caste system. Later he has taken a oath to make a social reforms in India. He realized the exploited caste and women exploited caste and women were at the disadvantaged Indian society, and also the education of these sections was vital to their empowerment. So generally empowerment will take place, there are 4 ladders of empowerment. One is, first we need to provide education, later we need to give the economic empowerment, later we give the political empowerment, and finally they can enjoy the social empowerment. So therefore, first he has stressed that education is a basic impediment for, the education is a basic input for the empowerment of these deprived class of people. Therefore, to end this, he taught first He started his revolution from his home. First, he started his wife Savitri Pillai, and then both have started first indigenously run school for the girls in the Pune. This was not approved by the conservative upper caste society of the Pune. However, many Indians and Europeans were helped him to run this kind of education empowerment. At this juncture, his friend Usman Sheikh and his sister Fatima Sheikh were them shelter and also helped to school there in their premises. He started school for children for untouchable caste like such as Mahar and Monk. And after realizing the miserable condition faced by the widows, he found an ashrama for the young widows and finally came to the concept of widow remarriages. So this era society was male controlled, and in that women's status was terrible. So therefore he found one ashram. In that he has made a concept of widow remarriage. So in that period, the female infantiated and the child marriage were both common occurrence in that era, with the minor occasionally being married to the much older men. Before they reached the adolescence, these ladies frequently lost their husbands and leaving them without any familial support. So Jyotiba Phule was distressed by their situation and founded an orphan in 1854 to protect these poor children from dying at the brutal hands of the society. The traditional Brahmins and other upper castes were attacked on the Mahatma Phule because his works are not adjustable for them, and they called him as a hypocrite and accused him he is corrupting the societal rules and regulations, and they made an allegation that they are represented from the Christian missionaries and many more. And he ran an anti-authoritarian campaign and urged the peasant and working class to resist the limitations the placed on them. Whatever the obstacles came, but he has taken a resistance and he moved forward with his vision along with his wife Savitra Vaipul. He welcomed the guests different backgrounds and the caste into his home and put his views on the gender discrimination which is happening in the society, and he make a collaboration to fight for the social reforms. He was resolute and chose to carry on the movement, and interestingly he had several Brahmin acquaintances to lend their support to the movements taken by Mahatma Phule. He condemned the discrimination which are experienced at the bottom level of the caste system, including Shudras, that is the artisans and the labor community, and the group today called scheduled caste and the Dalits. He created the movement and revoluted with a new social order in which no one would be subordinate to the upper caste like the Brahmins. Later it became the Satyasodhana Samaja on 24th September 1874. Now with this Satyasodhana Samaja, it means the society of seekers of the truth. By this society has made the attempts, that is to attain the equal social and economic benefits for the lower caste, to focus on the right of the depressed groups such as women, Shudra and the Dalits, to spread the rational thinking and reject the need of the priests, and to idle with the ideal principles of human well-being, happiness, unity, equality, and easy religious principles and rituals. To aware the information through the Pune-based newspaper, he has started that is called Dinabandhu, and he conducted a methodological deconstruction of historical ideas and beliefs before rebuilding the equality. He used several other ancient writings to trace the origins of Brahminism and accused the Brahmins of creating cruel and exploitative regulations to preserve their social supremacy on the Shudras and Adi Shudras. He decided to build a communal bathing tank outside his home to eat with anyone regardless of their caste, values of the society, the Satya Sodhana Samaja's values are to build equality, brotherhoodness, and the non-requirement of the middleman in the religious practices. And these are the there are many social reforms are there. So in that I have traced only few important social reforms taken by the Mahatma Phule. Now, being an economic reformer, he is basically a farmer and a businessman as well. He styled himself as a merchant and a cultivator and a municipal contractor. He owned 60 acres of farmland at his native place. And being a government contract, he supplied engineering materials for the construction of the dam on the Mulan-Muta river near the Pune in 1970. He also provided laborers for the construction of the Katranj tunnel and the Yarwada jail near the Pune. He owned a business in 1863 to supply the metal casting equipments. He initiated the movements. First, he has taken educational empowerment. Later, he has taken economic empowerment. So, therefore, his role is the economic reformer. He initiated the movement and missions to decrease the hardship laid upon the farmers by the forest department, was Madam has traced in detail, and to decrease the what you call tax upon the farmers to work on the agriculture segment. He submitted many requests to the British government helping the farmers and making the canals for the agriculture purpose, decreasing the hardship faced by the laborers in various factories to frame the rules and regulations, and granting the concession to the labor community on the humanity grounds. He has made many requisitions to the British government, and he fight for that. He started the first Indian workers organization, that is called the Bombay Mill Hands Association, with the help of Sri Narayan Mehaji Lakhade. And he practiced different types of businesses. He earned a considerable income because of his sincerity, motivation given to the labor community, appreciation from the labor for their hard work, keeping the busy always, and his loyalty and his honesty. And he advocated that farmers should take the advantage of water from this Mulan Muta dam, and developed the beautiful garden by taking the advantage of the water from that dam. He became an example for the other farmers, and he cleared the misunderstanding among the farmers regarding the cultivation of the flowers, fruits and vegetables of the foreign origin. He owned many shops, mainly for selling the molds, vegetables and books. He was engaged in selling the pebbles artificially prepared by breaking the bigger stones, lime and bricks and gitties. Moreover, he spent his entire income, whatever the income he generated from his business, so entire income he is going to spend for the social work and activities to such an extent he had no money to buy the medicine during his last terminal illness. He did the farming in the good and systematic manner and obtained bountiful the crop of the fruits. He had the agency for selling the vegetables and fruits at wholesale rates in the Pune market, sending the vegetables and fruits to the Bombay. So instead of doing the government job, he preferred to his ancestral the business, and he helped his father and sell the flowers and lead his future life also. He preferred to do the various kinds of business instead of accepting the slavery of British government service. He one kind of the Swadeshi man. By doing the various kinds of business, he earned his family livelihood. The accounts related to public activities in the school presented by him reflect his clean and transparent personality. And these are the political reformers. Being a economic reformer, he has taken many initiatives. In that, few I have highlighted here. And being a political reformer, he was the government nominated member of the Pune municipality during the 1876 to 1882. During this period, he worked for the safeguard of the interest of the general public. He strongly expressed his opinion before this British governments, and he tried to construct the lake of the water to supply the clean filtered water to the citizens of Pune. He considering the fact that the poor vegetable vendors would not afford the rent of the stall in the proposed Pune market. Therefore, he condemned the construction of the market in the Pune. With a view to prevent the wastage of money collected from the poor people, he opposed the proposal of the expensive beautification of the city on the visit of the Victory from the England. And he has influenced many personalities and philosophers. More importantly, has influenced on the Mahatma Gandhi and the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar became an instrumental in writing and enacting the Constitution of India, in which he brought all the ideas and thoughts of the Mahatma Phule and gave the constitutional shape what he has propounded. We all fruitful of these eminent people and who gave our journey with full of roses and happy. His ideology of social revolution can be traced in our fundamental rights, administration in the directive state principles of the state. More the police work's contribution can also be identified in the United States Sustainable Development Goals. His ideas and thoughts and the philosophies are still unfilled and untapped in some extent in the just society and the modern India, even after India's Amrit Mahotsav celebration. So the contemporary relevance of the study is his ideas and the thoughts and actions in making the society reform and revolutionary will remain unfilled and some are untapped till today. So in that I appreciate this center so being an instrumental to bring such kind of his ideas and contribution to the mainstream of the society. There are numerous research work have been studied on Mahatma Phule regarding his hopes and regarding his contribution, the works and achievements. His struggle and effort toward the social change and gender discrimination, particularly Devadasis and child marriage system, and he worked on the work-based discrimination, the opposition of widow remarriage, harassment of the poor and illiterate people, suppression of the social and economical weaker sections like Dalit, women and minorities, and many such social evils are still existed, and it we can, if you open our newspaper, daily newspaper, one or two incidences we generally are going to find. So these are the efforts, the many efforts he has fight for the what you call the deprived class in 2 years back. So my study is going to be presented in this manner, that is, which is going to be submitted in a few days. That is first research design, and second chapter belongs to the Mahatma Phule, his life biography and key roles and contribution. And third is Mahatma Jyotiba Phule and the ideology of social revolution and evaluation. And fourth one is Mahatma Jyotiba Phule and the modern India and an implication on the social, economic and political segments. And finally, I am going to find the summary of findings, suggestions and the conclusions relating to the this one. And a few of the findings, because I am in the analysis of the study, so therefore I have used the schedules. In that I found that Dalits of my study reason, have expressed that till they are harassed to some extent by the upper community, especially in case of doing the car festivals and going to the temples. Today, the taluka I have taken in Ballari, in one village I have taken in Ballari taluka. Till today, the case has been filed because the Dalit family has taken they made a puja in the temple, and the case has been filed in the district court, and till today it is going to be happen. The case has been filed before 20 years, and till today it is going on. And the temple is closed because of this kind of fighting between the upper community and the lower community, and till today it is existed. So those communities are saying that we cannot participate in the car festival till today, even though they are getting educated, they are getting what you call they are entering, they are having well source of earnings, and they are leading the life with happy and the joyful, even though they are not allowed to participate such kind of these celebrations and those are. And the minorities in the region, they feel that insecurity and their voice cannot be heard by the upper community because they are marginalized, and women from the OBC background, backward classes says that their life has been safeguarded because of the constitution. So that the Ambedkar, the Mahatma Gandhi has influenced on the Ambedkar, and he made given the rights to the women in the constitution. And the school-going children are founding the Mahatma Gandhi in their syllabus. And in primary school in Karnataka, they adopted Mahatma Phule as a one chapter for the social science text, and Ambedkar in the Ambedkar text in high school for the social science subject. And NGOs are fighting for the rights of deprived classes and Dalits in the region. And the political leaders are also discriminated in various terms regarding the political issues by giving what he called the reservation for the seats. And once the government has announced that this is a seat, this presidential seat for SC community, the another community is going to make a stay in the court, and immediately they are going to change that seat into the general or some other community. Because of the reason is they should not take the political powers. So another is condition of Devadasi were also not good in the condition, even though in Karnataka the Devadasi system has been prohibited and abolished, and till today they are receiving monthly pension. But in monthly pension also the many of the officials are not supporting to that, because the KS officers are not belongs to the what we call that community. So therefore they are also harassing by sanctioning the pension to these Devadasi the people. So this is my presentation. So I welcome the objections and the comments on my research study. Thank you.
And, suggestions.
Yes.
Like you go through the slide, research gap. Research gap. Now, what is actually research gap means? What is research gap?
Research gap means what are the thoughts and ideas of the Mahatma and how they are being.
Research gap in the sense it is review of literature you have to go through, and where the gap is there, that is research gap. This is not, you have presented only social issues. What are social evil practices you have presented? Where is the review of literature in your project?
This time slide.
When you are, what is your title? It's all broad title. Socio-economic, political, everything. When you are going for a project, you should have minor study at very macro level. Then where is that? It's all general. What you have presented is all general. It's nothing. What is the, where is your reference? What are the primary sources you have focused on? There is nothing in that you have not mentioned any sources. What are your objectives?
Sources that your review of literature, you are going to present that entire.
Where is the review of literature in your work? There is no review of literature. Who worked for how much?
It's only the findings and report is not yet submitted. Not yet submitted.
Okay, now what are your objectives? Objectives? What should be your objective? What is your main objective of the
So that
project?
is to evaluate the relevance of ideas and thoughts of Mahatma Phule and social and economic and political.
How you are going to do that? You have to present it.
No, I have set some questions. Based on that, I have collected the data.
Okay, to evaluate the what you have written here, fifth point. Fourth point, to measure the degree of impact of reforms. So, how you are going to measure that reforms and revolutions of Jyotiba Phule?
There is a reference of education in this. Is there?
That is what?
It is not education related. It's a social.
It's all general work you have presented. Project should be like deep studied project, no? Next slide you show. Next slide, you have showed, you told that in your presentation, Jyotiba Phule was influenced by Gandhi and Ambedkar. Please show me that slide. We would like to go through once again what is that slide is talking about. He has, you wrote, he has influenced by many personalities and philosophers.
Mahatma Gandhi. He wrote on Mahatma Gandhi. On.
Okay.
He has influenced on Mahatma Gandhi.
Okay.
More important, he has
Influence his works.
sources
We narrow down
in
the
your
topic should be
presentation.
narrowed down, not to narrow down.
In your
Okay,
presentation.
sometimes the topic will be we can.
What are your sources you have not shown? Primary sources?
I am submitting in the report.
Here also you have to tell us no sources. What is the literature of Pule you have studied for this work? Pule's literature, I understand. Pule literature, which literature you have studied for the social issues? Social reformer, as a social reformer you are talking about, as an economic reformer, as a political reformer, okay? So as a social reformer, what are his own writings you have studied? Literature. Jyotiba Phule.
Relations. One, you have done your primary sources of data also. So you can definitely, when you're saying implications, comparing the social, political and all that. So, as ma'am is saying, definitely it stands relevance because all this information is there in internet. Right. But what we need as scholars to do is analyze the thought process of Jyotirao Phule. His primary, like a lot of his writings are there, and compare it to the current context. That's very important. For example, when we talk about discrimination, you would have listened to the voices of your primary people, right? Like Devadas, you have listed some 20, around some 60 people. So if we can kind of look at that kind of, since it is a small sample only you have taken, so you have not got into that. So those voices will add more strength to your study. Because this one looks like a lot of secondary material, but since you have also gone into the, like you just said that, some car festival. So instead of that, that may be one of the incidents, but go deeper in terms of the voices of the people, which can reflect the pain of discrimination and why we need to continuously look into that kind of rights-based approach even now. What are the thought process of Jyotiba Phule is reflecting now in the current context. So that will add a lot more strength. These are my suggestions.
Sir, even one more point, like today in Karnataka, women are practicing somewhat like Devadasis, even girls.
Scholars like India, Dr. Indira, Dr. Ashok and Srinivas sir. So, yeah.
Social scientist, not only social reformer, social scientist.
That is what?
Social criticism, ideology and social criticism. Social scientist, now to analyze all these points.
Now, thank you, sir. Thank you. Now I invite Dr. C.H. Shruti Madam. So, going to present and contemporary already screen.
I'm Dr. C.H. Shruti, Department of Sociology, Nizam College, Usmania University. And my topic is the contemporary agrarian sector of India, a praxis, measures for agroecological system through agrarian rationalism of Mahatma Jyotiba Phule. So I tried to present the paper in 4 solution and in chapter 1. In chapter 1, I have introduction, a little bit of review of literature because of the depth of time and structural transformation, which is in concern with the international evidence and the role of the agriculture in the structural transformation, and objectives and hypotheses have been covered in first chapter. Right? Coming to the first chapter. Agrarian sector is an important component of the primary sector and is also vital for sustaining and developing both secondary as well as the tertiary sectors, as it is the backbone of the Indian economy, and agriculture is the foundation of livelihood, civilization, culture and heritage of India. Agriculture and the farming have changed drastically during the past 30 years, from the farmers being social group enjoying political, economic, and societal support to the current situation where the farmers struggle to find legitimacy for its allied sector contributed to a GDP of 51.573% in 1954 to 1955, which has reduced to mere 17.1% in 2018. The decline in the sector's contribution has been a constant decline, but the population involved in the sector remains a constant, more or less a constant figure, indicating the population involved in the sector being much more than what the sector is producing, and also just and also suggesting higher number of the poor in the category. Yeah, next is review of the literature. I have taken only few reviews due to the depth of time. I have presented in my research proposal, and the linkage between the agriculture sector and the development was first discussed by Lewis, who is an UN economic advisor in 1954. In the context of the Indian agrarian sector, a consistent decline of the share of agriculture and employment in the GDP had been due to the structural transformation of the economy. According to his work, the capitalistic sector drew excess labor from the subsistence sector, that is from agriculture, due to the high wages in the capitalistic sector. But after independence, the government of India tried to revive the agriculture sector through abolishing Zamindari and Jagirdari systems, and through Land Ceiling Act. The Indian government has also initiated some other important policy changes in 3 phases. In phase 1, which is between 1950 to 1965, it has focused on increasing the irrigation and through building dams. Next slide. During 1950 to 1965, the Indian government invested heavily on agriculture and the power projects with a hope to raise the crop production and address the food shortages. Big dams like Bakranangal Dam, Damodar Valley, Hirakund, Nagarjun Sagar, etc. have been constructed for irrigation and electricity generation. Both the area under cultivation and irrigation went up and the crop production increased. But during 1962 to 65, India faced 2 wars and the government spent a lot of money on the war. And in 1965 and 1966 were declared as the drought years. So there was a decline in the production of the food grains, and the government has to import the food grains. So for which it has went into Green Revolution, which is in the second phase. So this Green Revolution has been marked with the introduction of a new kind of seeds called as the high yielding seeds, that accompanied with the heavy usage of the chemical fertilizers and pesticides, along with mechanizing the agriculture through tractors, and besides irrigation facilities, and along with a number of cooperative banks were set up so as to provide the credit to the farmers. In the third phase, which is after 1990s, initially between 1967 to 1991, Indian farmers sold their produce to the markets within the country and to the government through Food Corporation of India. Export or the import of the most of the farm products, that is the food grains, was banned. Only government had the right to import the farm products in case of scarcity. The government supported the farmers by supplying subsidy, farm inputs, and by procuring the farm products at a minimum support price. But post-liberalization, which is after 1991, new economic policy of 1991, there was a significant change in the agricultural policy, because the government, in accordance with the World Trade Organization agreement, the government had to remove the tariff, which is nothing but tax on the imports, along with taking off the subsidy on the imports to the native farmers. Trade liberalization has significant impact on the Indian agriculture, as there was a sharp fall able to compete in the global market, and they lost even their local market due to the price fluctuations. These small and the marginal farmers were most affected with the LPG policy, and they were not in a position to buy the high cost seeds, fertilizers, and were not either able to compete in the global market, and they even lost their local markets, which has landed them in debts, and this resulted in a rise in the farmers' suicides. Even those farmers who were able to compete in the international markets were not able to withstand the sudden fluctuations of the markets, which left them helpless and with huge debits. So, coming back to the structural transformation. Structural transformation is nothing but it is the reallocation of the economic activity across the broad sectors of agriculture, manufacturing, and services. Timmer, who is an authority on agricultural development, food security, and World Rise Economy, core advisor of the World Bank in 2008, has said that he defined the structural transformation through three interrelated processes: a declined share of the agriculture in employment and national income, with a rising secondary and tertiary sectors of the economy, and rural to urban migration, from high birth rates and death rates to low birth rates and death rates. The structural transformation will lead to a world without agriculture. This does not mean that economies are functioning without agriculture, but it means that the share of the agriculture in the national income is diminished to the point where its share will be less than that of 3% of the GDP. But still the agriculture plays an important role because it is the sector that ensures the structural transformation, because it is going to be critical in supplying the surplus food, labor, and savings. And according to Timmer, no country has been able to sustain a rapid transition without increasing the agricultural sector productivity first, which provides food, labor, and savings to the process of urbanization and industrialization. This was also supported by two major economists, Johnston and Miller, who is a Nobel Prize winner in the concept of industrialization. They have also supported the concept that low agricultural productivity slows down the industrial process. So, coming to the hypothesis and objectives. Mahatma Jyotiba Phule, with his comprehensive knowledge of agriculture, has suggested certain measures which stand quite relevant in the present agrarian crisis. So an effort has been made through this study to put forth that relevance. First one is understanding and comparing the segmental categorization of the agrarian society of India, both in the colonial period of Jyotiba Phule and the present global era, means contemporary agrarian sector. Figuring out the weight of the plights of the farmers of the current agrarian community of India with those that were identified by Jyotiba Phule in the colonial period. Next. Perceiving the relevance of the measures recommended by Jyotiba Phule and extrapolating them to the present agrarian sector to make it an agroecological system. Hypothesis. Agrarian community has become much diversified and complex in the contemporary society. Diversified and complex in the contemporary society in comparison to the Jyotiba Phule's time. Though the form of the complexity of the agrarian community has changed, much of the plights of the farmers to a very large extent remain similar to those that were identified by Jyotiba Phule during the colonial period. Even today, most of the measures proposed and advocated by Jyotiba Phule remain quite relevant with regard not only addressing the agrarian crisis, but also in the capacity building of the farmers to make agroecology relevant. So the research methodology that I have adopted is descriptive and analytical in nature, because the study is basically thematic issues of the subject under study. So the sources of the data are basically secondary type and are both qualitative and quantitative in nature, and the secondary data has been taken in lines to the Phule's ideas and thoughts on the agrarian sector from the agricultural census, nation sample survey, and Food and Agricultural Organization, World Bank Organization studies on Indian agriculture issues and priorities, studies of United Nations organizations, and economic surveys, Economic Times, and National Academy on Agricultural Sciences studies have also been taken into consideration. Now, the contemporary challenges, second chapter. Contemporary challenges in Indian agriculture. So, before we get into the contemporary challenges, we should know when India has, the reason why we got into green revolution was to have self-sufficiency in food grains. So, we were able to increase the production. Green revolution very much helped the farmers to produce the higher qualities of the food grains and non-food grains on the same area of cultivation without any increase in the land area of cultivation, but it has also caused environmental effects. The environmental effects came forth in the form of the water problems, fertilizer problems, and if we are going to look at it, water problems, high yielding varieties of rice and wheat which were introduced in the green revolution require plenty of water, and these green revolution was first introduced in the states of Punjab and Haryana and parts of Uttar Pradesh. And if we are going to look at some of the environmental issues that were faced by these areas, the water problems is acute in these areas because much of the bore wells, tube wells have been dug in Punjab for irrigation. The main source of irrigation in these states are tube wells that draw the groundwater, and tube wells increased over the years. As a result, the groundwater level has been falling rapidly, and groundwater recharge happens each year through rainfall. A fall in groundwater level means less groundwater is available for future use. So this necessitates us to protect the groundwater. Next, fertilizer issues. Fertilizer problem with regard to the chemical fertilizers which were provided as minerals using nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium, and socio-economic sustainability adopting to monocrop modeled by the Green Revolution. The blind adherence to increasing the food production without considering the trade-offs or synergies with other outcomes is now being challenged and enabling India to envision alternatives that would address the needs of the farmers and the society and nature. The self-sufficiency in two cereals, wheat and rice in India, came at the cost of other forms of dependence. The import of rock phosphate for fertilizers and petroleum for irrigation pumps and tractors, which made agriculture a carbon-emitting sector impacting the climate. India became vulnerable to a different set of interests with deeper ecological and existential questions that have emerged. Pule identified the ecological dynamics that strengthen the agrarian economy, which is more relevant in the contemporary context of agroecology. Agroecology offers an alternative and a viable strategy for transforming the food systems to deliver fair outcomes for farmers, society, and environment. Agroecology can help reverse these trends by managing and conserving the agrobiodiversity and responding to the increasing demands for a diversity of products that are eco-friendly and nutritious. It is important to frame the policy to recognize the role of the farmers as librarians of traditional knowledge, custodians of natural resources, and providers of nutritious food and ecosystem services. This recognition has to be reflected in a better social status and quality of life to encourage the farmers to continue farming. This needs the support of the policy makers for developing such mechanisms or incentives that will make farming an appealing, respectable, and more valued profession and way of living. Women make up almost half of the agricultural workforce in India. Besides household food security, nutrition, and health, women also play an important role in conservation and sustainable use of biological diversity. Agroecology opens spaces for the women to become more autonomous and empower them at household and community level through participation in producer groups. Women's participation is essential for agroecology and women are frequently leaders of agroecology projects. Organic agricultural systems are distancing from its original ideology due to the high industrialization and long supply chain. So new and alternative arrangements under community supported agriculture can bring farmers and consumers closer together and shorten the supply chain through which through farmers markets, farm shops, subscription box schemes, and thereby supporting sustainable farming and consumption. Linking traditional agriculture with school meal, midday meal program, a crucial step in enhancing the nutritional standards of midday meal in traditional farming agro ecosystems of India would be through the introduction of nutritionally rich local crop in the midday meal menu. Producing fortified and nutritious foods by community-based micro-enterprises led by the self-help groups for pregnant, breastfeeding mothers and children provided as take-home ration through integrated child development programs delivered to Anganwadi centers by the women groups strengthens the traditional farming and agro ecosystem. Promoting food-based approach towards the community nutrition and health, integrating environment and health issues, focusing especially on the many interactions between agriculture, ecology, and human nutrition are being explored. Malnutrition in its various forms includes undernutrition, that is wasting, stunting, and underweight. Inadequate vitamins are the minerals. Overweight and obesity are the results. Diet-related non-communicable diseases. According to the World Health Organization, almost one of the 3 people in the world suffered malnutrition in 2017. One significant reason for this malnutrition is that the food itself is lacking the sufficient nutrients. Deficiency of micronutrients in degraded soil, which takes place due to the depletion of the soil organic manure, is an important factor impacting the human health. Agroecology could effectively address this issue. Thank you so much for being listening to me so patiently. Promoting the indigenous food security in traditional Indian agro ecosystems, food sovereignty exists. Reintroduction of the indigenous food production practices will help restore the food sovereignty to the native communities. The food sovereignty initiatives world over are community led. For example, it is reported that many tribal communities in USA are regaining control of their food supply. They are growing traditional foods and collaborating with the federal government to retain the rights for hunting and gathering. That is patent rights. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Please take into consideration of the inputs given by the scholars and also the evaluation committee and go through it and also modify the entire report, final report, and submitting it in the short time. Okay, we are going to publish on that. So and display the website also. So now I request Professor Srinivas sir, please some of the observations.
So thank you very much. 60 years of soil. This is the UNO report. The soil which contains the organic matter has been losing day by day, and thereby we are not in a position to produce the food grains from that soil with the same nutrient quality. Throughout the world, I am talking about. Throughout the world, 60 years the soil is left over. Until we recharge the soil to the extent possible, the top 1 centimeter soil is most important soil. Layer of the soil. It should and must contain the organic matter, and because of our devastated usage of fertilizers and in order to provide high varieties and all those things in a genetically modified way of cropping, that damages the topsoil, and we are not having any recharge the topsoil. In olden fashion, we have cattle feed, we have the fallen leaves, and there is a manure. All these things are going to be nurtured in the same soil in order to revitalize the particular soil in a systematic way. There is no answer for this. As long as you are not getting your soil good, your body not good, because nutrients are not available.
So how the food will be produced? What is the intention of this capitalism?
only profit mechanism. My profit is your loss, your profit is my loss, is the market economy. That's all. The market economy that we had and that we have been now in that vicious circle, this my profit is your loss. Win-win situation was not there in this marketization. Market.
Sir, I am. No, I am.
Ashok sir. One second. Okay.
Congratulations.
Congratulations and
Now I
thank you.
invite Rajendra.
Sir, Ashok sir. Madam.
Baru, input. Wale.
So you are from Ballari. And you are comprehension that of
Okay, right. Okay.
Chair please.
Exam my childhood to face this problem. Same question about this right?
Okay. Thank you. There my waiver was sir. Okay, okay, sir.
Center official.
Official.